Welcome to Western New York Entrepreneurs Unleashed, the podcast that unveils the remarkable stories of local business owners running 7, 8, and even 9-figure organizations. We dive into the personal journeys that allow these inspiring leaders to live their best lives. Western New York Entrepreneurs Unleashed will offer you invaluable insight, one captivating story at a time. Brought to you by Entrepreneurs Organization of Western New York.
Hello, everyone. This is David Cerns, and welcome to another edition of Western New York Entrepreneurs Unleashed. So today we have what I hope will be a treat for everybody. This is the first Strategic Alliance Partner, or SAP as they're known to EO of Western New York, our first SAP partner to be on the podcast. And I'm really excited to introduce you today to Stas Balanevsky, because Stas is not only someone who supports entrepreneurs, that's what all of our SAP does, but Stas also is an EOS Implementer, meaning he works with entrepreneurs to help make their businesses better. So we're really going to dig into that, have a lot of fun hearing some stories from Stas, and welcome to the show, Stas.
David, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I actually did not realize I was the first SAP at EO Western New York.
Yes, so no pressure, but if you get it wrong, we can't have any more on the show.
Okay, I will try not to mess it up.
So before we get to your story, which I really want everyone to hear, I mentioned the phrase EOS Implementer, and some of the people listening or watching on YouTube may know what that is, and some may not. So tell us a little bit about what you do as a certified EOS Implementer.
Yeah, sure. I do three things, and I provide three things. So I am a teacher, facilitator, and coach. So I teach the Entrepreneurial Operating System, which is based on a book written by Gino Wickman called Traction. There's 787 of us around the planet. We've done about 26,000. We have about 26,000 clients running on EOS with an implementer, and we've completed over 180,000 full-day sessions. So we exist to help business owners and leaders get what they want from their business, and we do that by giving them three things. We call that vision, traction, and healthy. Vision is figuring out where you want to go, how you're going to get there. Traction is actually executing really well with discipline against that vision. And healthy is having that open, honest leadership team rowing the boat in the same direction to get to where we want to get to.
Excellent. I know EOS because our company runs on it, but what does it mean to have an operating system for a business? Could you explain a little bit about that?
Sure. We believe that all 136 things you worry about in your business can be neatly compartmentalized into 6 key components. So I mentioned vision before. Vision is the first component, figuring out where you want to go. And there are tools associated with each of these components. Next is the people component, making sure you have the right people in the right seats, doing the right things to drive our business. We have the data component, where we look at leading indicators of performance, making sure that the business is doing the stuff that it's supposed to do, that our people are actually executing to make that vision true. We have the issues component, which is all about getting to the root of the issue and making it go away forever. Then we have the process component, which is the thing that allows us to scale beyond ourselves, making sure that we're executing really well and super consistently. And then the traction component, which is our level 10 meeting, our rocks, which are 90-day priorities. And that's just making sure that vision becomes real, because vision without traction is hallucination.
Excellent way to describe it. I like that.
Thanks. Those are Gino's words, not mine.
In working with entrepreneurs, we're going to get to some stories later about specific examples of things you've seen, but I'm just curious, as you go through those 6 different elements of managing your business, where do you see entrepreneurs struggling the most? Which of those 6 areas is the toughest?
The people component is definitely the toughest. A good buddy of mine who's an EOS implementer once said 83% of all problems in your business are people problems, and the remaining 17% are people problems. Because the thing is, I'm sure you've heard it said before, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with people. To the extent to which you can get your people aligned to your core values and give them clarity on what they need to do, that's step 1. And then we have to go get those people. right? Just the blocking and tackling of business, especially in today's climate.
So is it a matter of entrepreneurs are bad at hiring, or entrepreneurs are bad at managing their people, or both?
Visionary, if we talk about entrepreneurs and we talk about your classic visionary entrepreneur, those people tend to skew to the not amazing at managing people because they've already driven the road that they want you to drive on. They've already avoided every single pothole. They are already at the rest area waiting for you. And they haven't actually told you where to go or how to get there. And then they're frustrated because they're at this rest area and they're like, David, where the heck are you?
How do you not see it? It's so obvious.
That's right. Exactly. I've had this idea in my head for the last 19 years. I've given you 2% of it in the last 6 minutes, and I don't understand why you're not up to speed yet.
Sadly, I can relate to that. As the visionary seat in our organization, I'm guilty as charged. So let's take a dive back into some of your story. And if my research is accurate, you started your entrepreneurial journey at the ripe old age of 13. So
13.
what did you do, and how did you become an entrepreneur while you were still in middle school?
Family friend, a marketer that's really well known, actually, came home. I don't know if he was still in university or if he was in his first career, but he came home and my dad was working for his dad. So we were over for a barbecue or something. And he said, there's this thing that has come out that you have to buy for your kid. It's called the Macintosh. So 1985, right?
Yep.
So I had an original Mac. I had some money that I had made through a paper route and some bar mitzvah money and blah, 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 blah. My dad said, I'll split it with you. So I made a gigantic investment. And then if you think back to 1985, the printing press was changing, right? It was the next stage, right? Gutenberg Bible, first printed book with offset type. And then the death of offset type was happening in the early to mid 80s with direct to print, direct to plate, right? Because now you go to a print shop and it's basically a laser printer that's just like printing. It's full production quality. But back then, after setting type, you went to this sort of direct to plate. And I was just in the right place at the right time and started working on that, and then started working for a Buffalo agency downtown on Main Street at the corner of Main and Summer. And I just got good at the Mac. And I'm not afraid of knocking on doors. So I was doing business cards and restaurant menus, and I ended up leasing a car in high school.
That's awesome. So you really were a business owner in your teens.
Yeah, for sure. I started working for an awesome guy also on Main Street in Williamsville who was like, yeah, let's get an LLC set up. He really helped me. He helped me name it. It was called Freelance Associates. And it was like, it was a thing. All through high school, that was my job.
Oh, that's fantastic. Was there something that drove you to want to be a business owner? Was it just the love of the Macintosh computer, or was there something else that was firing your ambitions?
I think there's a genetic predisposition. I think that I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. So we came to the US, we escaped from the Soviet Union in 1979, we bought our way out because of everything that was happening geopolitically. The Western world boycotted the Moscow Games, blah, blah, blah. But the fact is, my family were all business people, which in a communist economy is a crime. I heard all of these stories. Many of my uncles served time in the gulags in Siberia. And my parents had the gumption to get me out of the Soviet Union and to Buffalo, of all places.
So tell us a little bit more about your story. Where did you end up going to school? What did you study? Did you have an entrepreneurship focus as soon as you got into college?
No, not at all. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know Babson existed. Because that's the thing, like, I'm not even first generation. So having gone through the process with my now adult boys, it was like, oh my God, had I known all of this stuff when I went to great high school, Central Schools is a great, great public high school. Did not have the best sort of college advice, but I ended up going to BU, loved Boston, Studied international relations, studied marketing. Super fun. If you want to be a kid in a town that is a rip, it is Boston.
I can't say being a kid, but I was there last week for the Entrepreneurial Masters Program year one and had a good time in Boston and have even a better time at the EMP program. Probably one of the best programs available in EO. Kind of blew my mind, and now my head's swimming with all the things I have to put into action.
I've heard such incredible things about EMP. Is that the one that's tied into with MIT?
Yeah, it's tied into MIT, and it's a 3-year program where you are brought through 3 intense days. It was literally 14-hour days of classroom and peer interaction. You're having lunch and dinner with this cohort of people all day long, and it was the most amazing experience. I can't remember ever being that fired up, and I'm confessing here, I slept through every college lecture for 4 years of undergrad and maybe my 2 years of graduate. I was riveted the whole time to these presenters, even though they'd be talking for 3 hours about some area of improving your entrepreneurial skills. Absolutely incredible. And so for anybody in EO Western New York, if you are listening to this podcast, sign your butts up because it is probably the best thing I've done in EO. It's incredible.
Congratulations. That's awesome. That's one thing about entrepreneurs is we are all constantly trying to improve. And not because where we are isn't good enough. I think all of us are like, yeah, listen, I'm good. I'm happy. I'm successful. I'm doing all these things. And I want to get better. And I want to do more cool things. And I want to be exposed to other entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it gives you so much energy to be around people who are excited for the future, excited about what they can create, excited about the impact they're having on others. And I watch my friends in more traditional careers where they're excited about being 3 or 4 years away from retirement. I'm thinking about what career's next.
That's right.
So let's keep going through your story. When you got out of college, did you go the traditional job route or did you go back to the entrepreneurial route?
No, went absolutely traditional job route. Nepotism is a great way to get a job.
Yes, it is.
So I went to work for the company that my dad was working for, a company called Hard Manufacturing, right on Grider Street. They're a hospital bed and crib manufacturer run by an absolute wizard of an entrepreneur, Bill Godin. So you can probably figure out the marketer that helped me with the Mac was Seth Godin.
Yep.
So
very nice.
So yeah. Funny, actually, small town story. I was at a function the other day, hanging out with friends of mine. Their son was there. He's friends with my kids. And he brought his girlfriend. I'm talking to his girlfriend. She's, yep, I live in Williamsville. I'm like, oh, great. What street? She's, oh, I live on this street. I'm like, the only house I know on that street is number XX. And she, like, all the color fades to her face. She's, that's my house.
Oh, no.
I said, you're living in one of the best marketers' houses that's ever lived. So if you're in marketing, just put your face on the walls and osmose in the talent that is in that house. It's the wildest thing I've ever heard.
I went to that same high school he went to. So yes, I tried to suck that up, or at least try to take credit for being in the same building at the same time with him back in my earlier years. All right. So you got out of school, you went to work for dad, and then what happened?
Yeah, I was working for Bill. I'm just in a sort of CSR role, right? Just customer service rep, sales, inside sales, helping sales reps, doing the things. Started getting into international because I have linguistic skills. I understand the way the world works a little bit differently because I wasn't born and raised in Buffalo. And Bill just kept giving me more rope. And eventually I ended up owning the director of international sales seat.
Nice.
He basically said, you can just have it. Don't mess it up. We'll do it together. But in terms of the accountability for it, that was me. I owned it. And I was young. I was around 24, 25.
Oh, wow.
And I had a director position and we traveled the world and we started going to Russia because I spoke the language. We started going to other places. We would go to trade shows in Germany and he just let me run with it. He was that. The best analogy I can give you is I was on a tightrope and every time I would look down, I would see ground. But what he did is he painted the safety net
Mhm.
to look like the ground. So he was like, he knew we were going to be okay because he was watching. But every time I look down, I'm like, if I mess this up, it's Splatsville.
I love that analogy. Western New York Entrepreneurs Unleashed is brought to you by Entrepreneurs Organization of Western New York. EO is a global peer-to-peer network of entrepreneurs with more than 18,000 worldwide members. Locally, our 52 members employ more than 1,800 people, and we have a median revenue of $2 million. EO was founded to help move the world forward by unlocking the full potential of entrepreneurs. And our goal is to enable transformational growth in the lives of our members. If you're an entrepreneur with a business generating at least $1 million in annual revenue, come see what EO is all about. Visit us online at eo-wny.com. So when did you make the leap to decide to go out on your own?
When he fired me.
So much for that safety net.
No, but here's the cool thing. He fired me because what happened was we started bundling more and more product. So we would sell the hospital beds and cribs, and then we would sell operating room tables. Because they're like, you put a patient on it, can you go source operating room tables for me? I'm like, yeah, absolutely, I can do that. What do you think one costs? Right? Doing that. And our deals were starting to grow, but the purchased portion of our deals started getting bigger than our manufactured portion, at which point listen, the moment the product mix hits 49% and I'm on the low side, you got to go off on your own.
Okay.
He goes, so here's the deal. You're fired, but you can keep your desk. You can keep the phone. You can keep doing all the things that you're doing, but you need to put up your own shingle.
Very cool.
So I marched.
What a great mentor.
What's that?
What a great mentor.
Unbelievable guy. Unbelievable guy. And then I walked down to the end of the hall because my dad was his VP of manufacturing at the time. And I'm like, so I got fired. He said, your numbers are like hockey sticking. And I told him the story. He's like, that makes a lot of sense. So he was like, all right, I'll back you a little bit. So he helped me out. We created a partnership and we ran that thing. And then I started getting into structured trade finance on top of that. So I could go talk to a minister of health or a minister of finance and offer financing and the equipment package and training. I was leveraging US Trade Development Agency, US Export Import Bank. So I just started to learn more and more because I got access to consultants in DC. And we became an integrator of medical products. And we grew the thing and we were servicing the third and fourth world.
Wow.
Doing projects like Thailand and Bulgaria and Nigeria and all over the place.
So that sounds like there had to be a tremendous learning curve. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced in launching this business and how'd you deal with them?
Oh, just absolute like crippling fear and just gutting your way through it. Absolute imposter syndrome. Like we faked it till we made it. Because the fundamentals are the fundamentals, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're buying a set of inputs, you're applying labor and knowledge to those inputs, and you're hoping that you're selling the output for more money than the sum of the inputs. Right? Just it's arbitrage.
Simple enough.
Simple enough. Buy low, sell high. Get these two widgets, get widget string, tie it together. It's $1 a widget. It's 50 cents for the string. You got 2.5 into it. Go sell it for $5. Hope for the best. And so we would surround ourselves with smart people and put everything through our sort of internal filters of, does this pass the sniff test? Does this make sense? Ask a couple people, triangulate in on what's right and what's true, understand people's motivations, and build trust and build a team and just keep doing it.
So what eventually happened to that business?
Eventually that business, I left the business because I had a disagreement with my dad, did not agree on where he wanted to take the business. He wanted to stay in Uzbekistan where we were chasing a $110 million project. It was a very Moby Dick moment. where he was going after that great white whale, and I did not agree. And I said, I'm leaving. This isn't for me. We can't come to an agreement. And I'd like to get my money out of the business. And he said, you can leave, but money stays in.
Ooh.
And I had a choice to make. Do I either sue my dad for dissolution of a business,
Wow.
or do I just walk? And
Good for you, because that at least allows you to continue to celebrate holidays together.
no, he's passed, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah. But what it taught me was nothing focuses the mind like having a child at home and putting a mortgage payment on a credit card. When you grab a cash advance check, which is going to be a 3% hit on top of 16% money to pay an 8% mortgage,
Yeah.
that's when you go, holy expletive.
So what did you do next? Where did you pivot to?
I just started my next thing. So I was a co-founder of an internet traffic company, a couple of them, and built some companies, got hired by a guy that wasn't awesome. And then another guy came into my life. He was one of our clients, and there was a whole bunch of stuff. And it was funny, a dear friend of mine. So we all connected. And so CEO 1 was the guy that we started this company with, not a great guy. CEO 2 was connected, and we did some business with him. CEO 2 became friends with one of my best friends. And so I'm sitting at my friend's house and we're having a scotch, and I'm like, I hate this CEO 1. He goes, there it is. I'm like, there what is? He goes, that's the phrase that CEO 2 told me to wait for. Now that you've said the phrase, now I'm calling him. So he calls CEO 2. CEO 2 calls me immediately. We're getting together tomorrow. You're out of there. Let's start this thing.
Wow.
Yeah. So he, like, CEO 2 was super shrewd, ridiculously smart guy, made guy in the industry. And he took me from T-ball to the major leagues in a weekend.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And I stepped into that business with him and our CTO, who's absolute genius, and his team. And we were the best of the best. And we grew that thing in a hurry. We did amazing work, made a lot of money for a lot of people, and did it for a decade.
So Stas, listening to this story, a lot of people might say, geez, this guy was lucky. He was just at the right place at the right time, happened to stumble upon the right people. But I find that almost all successful entrepreneurs look like there was something about them that was lucky. What do entrepreneurs do? What did you do that it's not really just luck that makes you successful?
Yeah, lots of platitudes, right? You make your own luck and blah, 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 blah. The baseball analogy is I'm just taking at bats, and I get hit by the pitch sometimes, and then you get hit in the head, you still take your base. And then you learn, and like attracts like. If you're in an environment full of entrepreneurs, that's why I love what I do. That's why you love what you do. That's why you're in EO. You get this peer group of CEOs. I was having cigars in Tampa yesterday with a guy that was on my podcast, and he brought a buddy, and we're having this conversation, throwing all these different ideas around. And I look at him, I'm like, you realize you're going to get a 9-figure exit out of this thing, right? I was like, you think so? I'm like, I would bet you, yes, absolutely. And we're just talking about his business, and who knows what's going to happen with that guy? Who knows if our paths will ever cross? But if you're just out there and you're open and you talk to people and you help first, and then amazing things happen.
Yeah, it's a little bit of the Napoleon Hill. When you plant seeds in your mind and you truly believe things are going to happen, the stars just seem to align, but it's not really the stars aligning. I think it's your brain aligning to the universe that you start to see things, and you start to recognize things that other people walk right past and don't see.
For sure.
So let's talk about this transition now back to the world of supporting entrepreneurs and becoming an EOS implementer. So what in the world compelled you to want to work with this bunch of crazies known as entrepreneurs?
These are my people. Don't you malign my people? Because you're one of my people. Right. It's the richness of the conversation. And the other thing is the impact that they're having, right? Like the ripple effect of a visionary entrepreneur. Like how many right people, right seats do you have?
Yeah, in our business, we have 75 people coming.
How many of them have children?
Yeah, probably about half of them now.
Okay, so that's 37 and a half college. Well, so they have children, but they might have multiple children. So that's 100 college educations, which will then be 100 people that are going to be super, like the ripple effect of what you do is huge. And I love being part of that. And I love watching the success. And I also know that I can be really compassionate when things go bad because I've been there. If I had always been a successful entrepreneur, if I had never gone broke, if I'd never seen the bottom of a bank account, I wouldn't be as good of an EOS implementer as I am, just because I'm like, yep. Like I've watched guys personally guarantee multi-million-dollar payroll accounts, like no hesitation. Just like, okay, banker, what do you need? Oh, I need you to PG this thing. What is it? It's $2 million. Cool. Done. Holy, what? Guy's like, listen, I'm in for a penny. I'm in for a pound. It doesn't matter. I've been broke before. I'll be broke again.
Wow.
Okay.
Yep. But I also totally understand that you do what you got to do to keep the business moving forward. And you also, it's not that you don't appreciate the risk. You do appreciate the risk, but you also have an unwavering belief in yourself and your ability to get things done.
Bravery is not the absence of fear. Bravery is being scared and doing it anyway.
Yep. I love that.
Yeah.
So as an EOS implementer, you must see lots of things companies do right and do wrong. What are some of the most common mistakes entrepreneurs make?
There's such a rich diversity of the stuff that entrepreneurs get into. Sometimes lack of focus. I see one of the pieces of the vision component in EOS is your core focus. So it's a combination of your purpose, your cause, your passion, and your niche. Right? So the example that we always use is, could Orville Redenbacher make potato chips? I'm sure he could, right? He's got oil, he has kettles, like all it is just cutting up some potatoes and frying them up. But he doesn't, because his niche is popcorn. So the moment you get people that deviate from their niche, it gets problematic, because sometimes from the outside looking into another niche, it's like, we could absolutely dominate this market, and you get into it and you're like, oh, wow, there's tigers in here. This is scary.
It always looks easier from the outside.
It always does. And the other thing is, everybody believes everybody else's press. No one is going to put out that we barely made payroll last month. No, everyone's going to be like, we have the new Witchertron 2000.
It's like social media, right? Everything is someone's best self, not their real self.
So one of the things is that, right, that focus, that lack of that abundance of comparison, which creates a lack of focus sometimes. Sometimes it always trusting your gut. Every single entrepreneur that's, I knew we should have fired Bob 3 years ago. I'm like, why didn't she? All the 73 reasons why. You got to trust your gut. You're the leader. You have to make the tough decisions. And as they get better and better at making tough decisions, they don't become these draconian, you're 3 minutes late, you're fired. They don't become that, but they just get much quicker, right? They get quicker at making those hard decisions because they understand that making decisions is why they are there.
That actually probably dovetails nicely into the next question I want to talk about is, you must have worked with, seen examples of some entrepreneurs that become huge successes, 9-figure exits or whatever. Like I met somebody at EMP and he had this incredible business and he said, I work an hour a week. I was like, okay, that's a success at a whole different level. So what's the difference between those companies that become huge successes on whatever terms they have and those who struggle and merely get along, which seems to be like if you have an 80-20 world, it's the 80% of the entrepreneurs that seem to struggle.
The 20% that make it, that really make it, that are very successful, are the ones that have a crystal clear vision that everybody is aligned to making true. And they're unapologetic when it isn't going well. If you're my sales guy and we're going to be a $52 million a year company and we have no seasonality, you owe me $1 million a week. And if you show up at $982,000 in one of the weeks, I'm going to ask you what happened this week and what you're doing this week to make next week better. Right? It's part of that sort of radical candor, right? Because if you care deeply about somebody and you're going to be open and honest with them, like that's super important, because the other side of that is caring deeply about them, but being silent. That's ruinous empathy. Because if I keep telling you that you're pretty and you're so great and 800,000 is almost $1 million, right? And a quarter in, we're expecting $13 million and you're at 7, and the CEO looks at me and goes, you need to fire David. I walk into your office and I go, hey, buddy, I'm really sorry you're fired. And you're like, but you told me I was pretty. You told me I was trying really hard. I don't understand what happened, because I'm not being open and honest. And that thing, when a CEO and a COO and a leadership team all gel and everyone goes, all right, us united against every single problem that's going to happen to us, bang, that's when it works. Because that's when I could throw a toaster at your head and you'd be like, oh, he probably threw it at my head because he saw there was something that was going to hit me in the head first and he needed me to duck. Right? The thinking isn't right. The thinking isn't, why is he being mean? The thinking is, he is doing this for a reason, for the greater good of the company, and I'm all in on that.
Oh, that's great. So before we run out of time here, I'd like to hear a little bit about a Stas success story. What would you say is one of the biggest impacts you've made for a client? What was the situation and how'd you help?
I'm not a consultant. I'm just the mirror. All of the breakthroughs happen in the room because of them, right? The answers are in the room in an EOS session. I ask the questions, I facilitate, I teach them tools, and the dots connect in their heads and they do great things. There's not a thing that I could point to where, because of me, X happened. I'm just the guy sitting with the leadership team, asking that next question, hoping that's going to get them somewhere. And it's all on the teams. It's not on me.
Yeah, I heard a couple of the presenters at EMP really talking about the skill of the CEO is learning how to ask the right questions, not have the right answers. And that's a skill, particularly for those who grew up doing things and started a business because they were good at doing something, and everybody turns to them because they're problem solvers and they have all the answers. Learning to stop answering and start asking is a hard transition.
It is. I have a CEO, one of his, it's General's hot sauce, unbelievable hot sauce. If you're a fan of hot sauce, great CEO, amazing mission, right? Helping military and veteran families. One of their core values is FITFO, FITFO, which stands for figure it out.
Like that a lot.
And people walk in and they're like, hey, Dan, and he's empowering his people to figure it out, because they understand the mission. They understand where they're headed. There's no mystery there, right? Because once there's clarity of vision, clarity of mission, and people want, and have the capacity to do their job, wind them up and send them out. Go do it.
Love that. That's excellent. All right, I got 2 final questions. One's about one of the ways you give back, and I understand that you do some pro bono work wherever you will take on and help a client. What motivates you to do this? How do you choose who you're going to work with?
The motivation is, we have to help first. That's one of our core values. And also, I've got a pretty cool set of skills that I can bring to bear to a company that maybe can't afford it. Helping is the greatest thing. And it's super fun. I love giving books. I love giving gifts. If you'd look at positive intelligence and saboteurs, like my pleaser saboteur is pinned right as high as my hyperachiever. So I'm not trying to get rid of that. And then the question of how do I pick this? My most recent one was super easy. I knocked on the front door of Jewish Family Services and said, hey, I do this thing. It's called EOS and blah, blah, blah. They said, great, we'll take a 90-minute meeting. So we're sitting there, we do the 90-minute meeting. They're like, yeah, this sounds good. How much is it? I'm like, do you want to know your price or the price? Both. I'm like, okay, the price is X. Your price is 0. They're like, why? I said, because I was a refugee in 1979. When I came to this country, you bought me my first bed.
Oh,
They're like,
awesome.
holy crap, what? I'm like, yeah. So that is the current charity that I'm working with. And they are amazingly kind people that are also amazing operators. Like, they are good at what they do. They're not just, this isn't one of those charities where it's just like a whole bunch of really nice people that want nice things. Like, these people are best in breed, know what they're doing, executing at a very high level.
Oh,
so it's a pleasure to be in the room with them.
Very often with nonprofits, the management style can be a little dysfunctional. So I was thinking it must be hard to implement a system like EOS in that kind of an environment, but it sounds like you have the right client.
I do. No, they are 100% mission driven and understand that if they take these tools, apply them to their mission, and use the disciplines, they will do more with less.
Awesome. Hey, I did think about one additional question that I'd like to ask, and that's specifically related to EOS. Since you are a strategic alliance partner, you're helping our chapter, you're helping our members. But what do you see as the benefit to a business owner, to an organization like an EO?
We believe, we EOS implementers believe, you need 3 things to be successful. You need a peer group, you need an operating system, and you need a coach. Right? CEOs, it's super lonely at the top. If you don't run your company on EOS, you can't walk into your leadership team meeting and go, we're going to have trouble making payroll, because people aren't going to be like, let's get all the money out of the couch cushions. They're going to hop on to LinkedIn because they're like, sinking ship, and they'll be the rats leaving that sinking ship. So there are some things that you can only say to your entrepreneurial brethren. I'm very fortunate to have an entrepreneurial wife who is amazing and gets me, and I can tell her anything and everything. She understands me, understands my terminology, understands my business. She gets it. But the vast majority, and you're in the same boat,
Absolutely.
right? But we are 2 very fortunate men, right? Very few other people have that luxury. So they have to get into a room with other CEOs and be like, so this just happened and I'm scared. And other CEOs will go, don't worry about it. I've been there. Here's what I did. Here's my experience share. So I think groups like EO are critical to your success because it accelerates you, because you're able to learn from other people's mistakes and learn from other people's experience shares. The thing that I love about EO structure is you are very rigid in that I don't want you to talk to me from theory. I don't need, like, none of that.
Tell me what you've done that you can share.
Exactly. Because then you can describe what it felt like. So that's why I think EO is critical. I think having a coach or a peer, an accountability buddy is critical, and an operating system for running your business. Obviously, I would say EOS, but if it's not EOS, pick a system, run on a system so that you can actually engage your people in the doing of the thing that you want to do to make the business go.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I lied. I said I was done with questions, but one last one. I've heard just so many inspirational stories. What's your future look like? What's the future like for Stas?
EOS implementer until I croak with a marker in my hand.
I love it. So if people want to know more about you, get in touch. What's the best way to reach out? What's the best way to learn more about EOS and what an EOS implementer does?
So EOSworldwide.com is the website. Then Balanevsky.com is my website, where you can get to my EOS microsite, you can get to my blog, you can look at some of the heard in the session room nuggets that I record in my little book that's called Brilliant Ideas I Had While Drinking Bourbon, because I hear wonderful things come out of people's mouths that are hysterical, and they usually end up on LinkedIn with appropriate permissions. Or just call me, 716-601-8035.
Awesome. All right, Stas, thank you so much for joining us today on Western New York Entrepreneurs Unleashed. Really fun conversation. And You knocked it out of the park so we can have other SAPs join us in the future. Thank you so much.
Amazing. David, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Go Western New York entrepreneurs.
Thanks, Stas.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Western New York Entrepreneurs Unleashed, and another inspiring story from a local business leader who scaled their company. If you are ready to take your business to new heights and eager to embrace transformative growth, then don't miss our future episodes. Subscribe to this podcast today and be part of our community of leaders, builders, and change makers. Together, we're committed to moving the world forward by unlocking the full potential of entrepreneurs, one success story at a time. Brought to you by Entrepreneurs Organization of Western New York.